can you recall any type of huge challenge that you faced while in Scientology?
I mean, honestly, the biggest challenge was just trying to figure out what was going on. There were certain things that just didn't make sense. I think one of the funniest examples that I can give that makes people raise their eyebrow is there's this thing called a touchback. If you remember earlier, I talked about like the trauma from the motorcycle accident. Well, the way that they sort of believe that you're supposed to handle that is, I mean, it's so funny because it's like so obviously based on like scientific psychological research. So there's this thing called exposure therapy, which is, if you know what it is, I'll just give a quick brief explanation for any viewers who don't know. Basically, if you have some kind of fear or trauma, you can reduce that by slowly and safely exposing yourself to that trigger or that trauma. So if you're claustrophobic, you can like go close to an elevator and feel the fear, but like do so with someone who cares about you and talk about your feelings. And then like do that over and over until you're ready to get on, but not close the door. It's like a slow introduction of the stimulus, and it actually like works pretty well. Well, in Scientology, basically what they would do is like do the exposure therapy during the bodily harm moment. It was something called a touchback. And so like this was almost a daily occurrence at school. Is there'd be a kid running around being a kid. They'd trip, they'd fall, they'd skin their knee, and then in that moment, everyone on the playground had to stop what they were doing and be quiet. Because remember, anything that you say can be a trigger for their trauma later on. So everyone had to be quiet, and then the teacher would come out and they would have to repeat the injury motion. Like, so if they fell and skinned their knees, they'd have to like, not like literally do it and re-injure themselves, but slowly sort of go like, oh, and it's a touchback, right? You're touching your knee back to the pavement over and over. And you're supposed to do that until it stops hurting, which, spoiler alert, it never stopped hurting. Your knee is still bleeding. But it was like, I don't know. I think that sort of goes to show this, like, Scientologist. If you've ever watched a Tom Cruise interview, he believes that he can, like, stop car accidents from happening with his mind. That's kind of where they're coming from. There's this superpower level of belief that they can, like, control pain and control, like, all this stuff. So they're, like, teaching the kids that if you, like, do this touchback, like, you can't get injured. It's great. It was nonsense, and it was really weird even as a kid to have to do that. But it was also, we were so young that it was like, oh yeah, I guess it's time for the touchback. Darn, I was having fun and I have to fucking sit there and be bored and be quiet. I also think it's ironic too that like when everyone gets quiet, that's not supposed to be a trigger. Like that's more of a, like if the whole room went quiet, guess what? You're gonna be like, oh shit, that's the trigger. So
Yeah.
it was just weird. It didn't make any sense.
Are there any other like obscure beliefs in Scientology that people don't realize are a thing?
Think of some more. Okay, we've got suppressive persons, we've got the Thetan stuff, we've got the E-meter. Oh, I mean, well, I guess I sort of touched on the E-meter, but that's basically, it's like a lie detector. And one of the things that I learned how to do very well at a young age was actually lie to the lie detector. So I figured out how to monitor my breathing and my heart rate because they would ask you at the end of finishing a book, was there anything you didn't understand? And if you said yes, they'd make you go do that chapter again. And I didn't want to do the chapter again. So I'd be like, yeah, I know I understood everything. And they'd be like, good, your needle is floating is what they would say. Cause if you had a reaction, the needle, good, your needle is floating. That would become a phrase like, did you ever watch Office Space, the movie?
Yeah.
There's the sort of intro scene where she's like, picks up the phone over and over, like, can you please hold? Or like, Karen from the office space, please hold. And it just keeps, Karen from office space, can you please hold? Karen from office space. And it's like, she does that over. That's what the needle is floating thing felt like to me. It was like, good, your needle is floating. And then they'd like ask you in the next round, good, your needle is floating. And it was like bizarre, but I learned to basically just like, there were a few things I sort of tried early on. So if you squeeze the cans, it'll cause the needle to jolt. Which maybe that's all there is to it. Maybe it's literally like you get tense and squeeze it and it moves the needle. I really don't know. It's supposed to like read your soul. It obviously doesn't, but it was like, the Scientologists that's what they thought. It was like this magical machine that L. Ron Hubbard invented that could like see into your soul.
Interesting. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just basically saying that I learned how to like lie, and I knew that it was a lie, and then they'd say, "Good, your needle's floating." I'd be like, "Fuck yeah, I can skip I don't have to do this book. I don't care about this book. Let's move on to the next one."
And the view of Tom Cruise, I imagine Tom Cruise is like almost the Scientology version of C.S. Lewis, if not closer to maybe even Jesus Christ. Is
Yeah,
is he pretty much viewed that way amongst the civilians of Scientology?
yeah. I mean, so if I guess if you think of Jesus as like God's right hand man, like Tom Cruise is kind of like that. But like, I also know that Jesus is God, and so that's not really a delineation made in the religion. So it would be a little bit more like maybe one of the apostles would be a better analogy.
Mm.
He's like really important, but he's not. He's just like one of the apostles.
And if he's one of the apostles, I assume like John Travolta is another one.
Yeah. I mean, less so because he's less famous, I guess. But